Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and it is finally time for the full review of Modern Warfare 2. I put this off. Typically, I do a review 1 or 2 days into the game's life cycle, giving you my first impressions, but honestly, the game was missing so many features at launch that I wanted to wait because I thought the review itself would become irrelevant after they finally added a couple of things to the game, though unfortunately, we are now 1 week into this game's life cycle, and they have not added any of those features, and it's just time. I have to review the game as it is at launch, what they sold the fans, and the news is not exactly good. I will be covering everything here in this video today. We're going to be starting off with multiplayer, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll then be moving to the campaign, and then of course Spec Ops to round things out. So it should be a much longer video than normal. Sit back and relax, grab yourself a drink, and without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into the full review of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. First things first, we're going to be starting with the good in multiplayer. The game feels great. Everything from movement to gunplay to sound design, audio-visual as a whole is incredible in this game. It really is. The game itself looks fantastic. It feels fantastic. Moving around is nice. A lot of people are kind of upset about the idea that they got rid of slide canceling and jump shotting has been nerfed a little bit. To me, I still see plenty of people jump shotting. Sure, you can't really slide as much as you could before, but it does feel a bit more like a traditional COD in that sense, with people not necessarily being movement kings and rather focusing on positioning as well as gunplay. And the gunplay itself is incredible. I do really enjoy it. Every gun feels unique. You can make your gun feel even more different by using different kinds of attachments. There are plenty of attachments to unlock in this game, and the attachment unlock system encourages variety. I love it. I talked about this in the previous video. I absolutely love how they have the attachments unlocked, because if you want to get a certain scope, for example, on your assault rifle, well, that scope can only be used by getting the LMG to level 4. So then you're using this LMG up until level 4. Now you have this scope that you can use on all of your weapons. I think that's a really interesting way to go about things as compared to just taking your one gun and leveling it up and getting all the attachments just for that one gun, then never really feeling the need to move out or get out of your comfort zone. You need to actually explore the entirety of the game's arsenal, and I think that's a fantastic feature because it gets players out of their comfort zone and once again adds more variety to the Call of Duty franchise, which, let's be honest, in recent years variety has not really been all that prevalent. Typically the community finds 1 to 3 different weapons that are fantastic. They use only those weapons, and why wouldn't they? Because they can unlock all the attachments for them, and then they really just kind of stay there, right? They stay in their lane. In this game, if you want to unlock everything, you have to actually use everything, and I think that's a fantastic idea. It encourages a lot of variety, and the weapon platform trees, once again, it's a great way to unlock different forms of weapons. You know, back in the day, you would just level up, and let's say at level 15, you would get the M16, level 21, you'd get the AK-47, level 24, you'd get the MP5, or whatever. These are just examples, right? Well, now you have the weapon platforms. You unlock the M4, and the M4, by leveling up that gun, is how you get the FTAC Recon, and then leveling up the FTAC Recon is how you get the Hurricane submachine gun. Leveling up the Hurricane submachine gun is how you get the Icarus light machine gun. Leveling up the Icarus light machine gun is how you get the M16 assault rifle, which on all accounts is a really bad gun so far, which is unfortunate, but still, it's cool how you have to go from one gun to the other to unlock different weapons within these platforms. The same is true of the AK weapon platform tree. The same is true of the Lockman weapon platform tree. You know, the Lockman battle rifle, for example, is not a gun I'm overly interested in using, but I did use it because I need to level up that to then unlock the Lockman assault rifle, and now that I have the Lockman assault rifle, I'm leveling up that so I can then unlock the Lockman submachine gun, which is basically the MP5 of this game. So again, the variety is cool. The progression going from weapons is also very interesting. I'm a big fan of basically all these systems right here, and the same is true of the camo challenges. I know this is something that I'm basically just parroting from a previous video, but the weapon camo challenges are simplistic and they're also universal. Every weapon has 4 base camos, and the challenges are typically pretty simple. Get 50 aim down sight kills, get 10 double kills, get 15 kills from behind, you know, and once you unlock these base camos for one particular weapon, you then have that base camo for every other weapon. Now, of course, that does not count for gold or platinum or polyatomic or Orion, but the base camos themselves, once you have them for one gun, you have them for every gun, and there's over 180 camos in this game. So while there aren't many forms of progression so far within Modern Warfare 2, the attachment unlock system, the weapon progression in the form of weapon platforms, as well as just unlocking different things through these different weapons, as well as the camos, is a fantastic idea. I honestly have so much fun with it. It is something that I would really like to see return in all future Call of Duty games. The multiplayer maps themselves, I would say overall design is good. Now, we can talk day and night about the spawn system, which I will be covering later on, but the core maps themselves are average to good. I would say there's a couple really bad maps. Once again, we'll be covering the bad later on here in this video, but overall, Infinity Ward got out of their comfort zone and made maps that are not just brown, green, or gray. The maps themselves pop. They have lots of color. They remind me of Treyarch maps, honestly. They have predictable lanes. Engagements are pretty predictable, more or less, again, depending on the map. There's nothing exceptional, I'll say, about any of the maps in this game so far. I will say the Raceway map is very unique and very fun to play. It reminds me a bit of Miami in terms of its color scheme and how it feels, you know, from Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. But in general, the multiplayer maps overall, I would say, are good, and the game mode variety is also nice. You have traditional 6v6, and you have some new modes being thrown in there like Prisoner Rescue. You have third person if you want to play that, which honestly is really fun. I enjoy third person. It's a whole different way to play COD. It's a good way to get certain kinds of challenges like getting kills from behind. And then of course you also have Ground War and Invasion, which are on these giant maps which are not built for 6v6. In fact, these maps themselves are cut straight out of the new Warzone 2 map, which will be launching on November 16th. So you get a lot of variety with the different game modes here. You have the attachment system, which is interesting. You have the weapon unlock system, which is interesting. And the core game itself, from a fundamental perspective, like the actual gunplay and how the game looks and how the game feels, all of it's pretty top notch in my own personal opinion. I like all of these things, and that's why they were featured here in the good section. But we cannot have good unless we also have bad. So let's go ahead and jump into the bad section of the Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. First things first, the mini map. It just we talked about this during the beta, dude. I'm so frustrated by it. I really am. Not only is the minimap not functional, but it slows the game down and makes everything much more random and much more chaotic. Not only do you have limited information yourself as a player, but so does everybody else in the lobby, and with footsteps being basically the only indicator outside of gunfire as to what's happening in the game, moving too much is punished, and players generally play much more slowly because they don't have enough information to make informed decisions. Suppressors, as a result of this minimap, are completely useless. UAVs are the best score streak in the freaking game, and the UAV spam is ridiculous because the other kill streaks feel incredibly weak. Not only do people use UAVs because it's the lowest streak in the game and it also makes your minimap essentially work, but also everyone just runs low stuff in this game because it's not worth stressing over getting the higher streaks, because number A, they either don't get kills, or number B, they get shot down immediately. I've gotten a couple of chopper gunners. They get shot down like basically as soon as I get into the map. It just, I know that's part of virtually every COD, and you could say skill-based matchmaking is to blame there as well, because, you know, in a higher skill lobby, which I'm not saying I'm the best player in the world, but if you're in like an above average skill lobby and somebody calls in a chopper gunner, somebody's going to shoot that thing down. Like, somebody's working on their camo challenges for their launchers. Somebody doesn't want to get killed by a chopper gunner over and over and over. Somebody's trying to win the game. You know how it goes. So kill streaks themselves do not feel very powerful in this game, and the UAV is hands down the best streak in the entire game, and it feels really weird having that be the situation in a franchise that's been around for over 15 years. The new perk system is just not good. I talked about this as something that it's Infinity Ward reinventing the wheel. I saw potential with it during the beta, but now that we have the full launch, we were able to experience all the perks on all the maps with all of the guns. The new perk system just is not good, man. Having two base perks, which typically are not that powerful, having no dead silence at all, having Ghost be an ultimate perk, which means if you want to hide from the UAV spam, you basically can't until over 5 minutes into the match. It just doesn't feel good. It does not feel like you're actually making a class or you're tailoring your kit to your own specific playstyle. You are just taking whatever perks seem mildly decent, and then you play the game, and then throughout the match you'll get these other perks, but the other perks don't feel all that impactful because by the time you actually earn them, the game has already probably been decided. it one way or the other, and it just feels really weird. We go from the customization of the older Call of Duty games with a pick 10 system where if you wanted to, you could have 6 perks, and in those perks you could have Ghost and Dead Silence and Focus and all these other things all at once and really just build the ultimate perk class while foregoing things like having a secondary. Maybe you give up your tactical grenade, maybe you give up your lethal grenades and you have more attachments on your gun and more perks on your character. You have none of that customization here in Modern Warfare 2. It is a massive step backwards. I don't know why it exists outside of potentially trying not to confuse newer players, which I know that's what the Call of Duty franchise is all about now. They want to bring in Timmy No Thumbs and all the newer fans. And look, I'm not trying to gatekeep. It's okay to bring new players onto the franchise, but going back to even to a game like Call of Duty 4, where you had 3 perks. You had a perk 1, which was a bunch of good perks. You had perk 2, which admittedly in COD 4, things like Stopping Power and Jug were a bit OP, but in perk 2, you had lots of really powerful perks. Then perk 3, you had a bunch of other powerful perks, and you had to make decisions based on those 3 perks to build your class for your own particular playstyle. If I'm using a silenced P90 in Call of Duty 4, well, I'm thinking to myself, I want to be rocking Bandolier because I plan to stay alive a long time. Instead of Stopping Power or Jug, I'm going to be running UAV Jammer, which was the equivalent of Ghost in that game, and then Dead Silence, the equivalent of Ninja. So I have all the ammo I could ever need. I'm staying off the minimap. I have a suppressor in my submachine gun, and my footsteps are virtually silent. That is a stealth class, but also in a game like Call of Duty 4, I was foregoing the extra weapon damage of Stopping Power in exchange for UAV Jammer. I was foregoing the damage resistance or the effective extra health of the Juggernaut perk in exchange for being able to stay off the radar. When it came to Dead Silence, yes, my footsteps were a lot quieter, but I did not have the hip fire bonuses of Steady Aim. I did not have the run boosts of Extreme Conditioning. I did not have the bullet penetration of Deep Impact. When it came to perk 1, I may have had more ammo in the form of Bandolier, but I could not see claymores around corners like I could if I chose the Bomb Squad perk. You know, for example, I didn't have a bunch of mini nukes in my pocket if I used Frag times 3. It really seemed like the very first perk system we had in the COD franchise, which was over 15 years ago at this point, offered more variety and more customization than what we see within Modern Warfare 2, and that is horrible. I mean, they reinvented the wheel. We've talked about that to death, but I really do think this new wheel is like 5 steps backwards, man. It is not good, and unfortunately, unless they decide to do a complete Sledgehammer game style revamp to the game's multiplayer, I think the perk system is here to stay, and honestly, it sucks because I'm completely apathetic towards my perks. I don't even really know what perks are on my class most of the time because honestly, it doesn't really matter. Speaking of things that kind of make you feel apathetic towards the game, the squad spawn system. So if you guys didn't notice this, when you're playing game modes like Domination, Team Deathmatch, any kind of respawn game mode, they have what is called a squad spawn system, and it's really frustrating because oftentimes you spawn in and within 3 seconds of spawning in, you're being shot at by somebody because the game tries to spawn you near your teammates, and typically your teammates are not always going to be in the best position. So as a result of that, you get spawn killed a lot in this game. People say like, what are with the spawns on these maps? These maps have terrible spawns. Well, it's not the maps themselves as much as it is the squad spawn system, which is something they can fix, and I hope they fix, but right now, spawns feel really bad within Modern Warfare 2 because you're always being shot the moment you appear, and it just makes the game feel even more chaotic, and especially if you couple that in with the fact that your perks are basically useless and that footsteps are incredibly loud and you have no way of countering them, and the UAV spam on top of that, it sometimes feels overwhelming and that like you can't really do anything, and that's not a good feeling when you're playing an online multiplayer game. I will say that weapon balance overall is not terrible so far, but it does need some work, with some guns actually being made worse the more attachments you put on them. I think Exclusive Ace has a video covering that, so that needs to be addressed. We have things like the marksman rifles being as good or better than actual sniper rifles because they have 0 flinch. This is a clip I found on Reddit, and it really goes back to what I was saying back during Black Ops Cold War. You can make your sniper aim down sight speed as fast as humanly possible to make quick scoping viable. I get that, especially in a very quick time to kill game like Modern Warfare 2, but when you give snipers or sniper equivalents no flinch, that just does not work. That does not equal good, satisfying gameplay. If you're somebody with that M4 and you're lighting up your target and they don't move at all and they just left trigger, right trigger you, if you take an average player, you know, and you also give them aim assist, they're just gonna shit on you with these no flinch sniper rifles. We saw it back during Black Ops Cold War, and we're seeing it now once again with Modern Warfare 2. And I would say that some weapons are starting to stand out a bit more than some of the other ones, especially the weapons in the AK weapon platform tree. The AK-47, or the equivalent of the AK-47, they all have weird names in this game, is essentially a 3-shot kill, like even with a silencer anywhere on the map, and that's kind of a weird feeling. The AK-74U is a very dominant submachine gun, so I fully expect them to completely, you know, take care of weapon tuning and things like that in the future. I can see them definitely balancing things different in the future, but so far there's a couple of these inconsistencies, and I would definitely like to see those be addressed. And one thing that could help with that would have the attachments and the stats associated with them actually give us detail. There are some overlapping attachments in this game that say they do the same thing, and they do the same thing, and because there are no detailed stats in this game like we had in a game like Black Ops Cold War, we can't actually see which of these two attachments is even better. You know, there's no detailed stats really whatsoever, so that is something that needs to be added to the game. And on top of that, you could say the firing range should be good for something like that, but unfortunately the firing range is going to be the first thing we discuss now that we move into the ugly side of Modern Warfare 2. The firing range, we all heard about it. I was one of the first people, if not the first person, to leak the firing range because I had a playtester of Warzone 2 contact me and tell me about it. And in there, he said when you shot at these target dummies and things like that, numbers would actually pop up. You could test out your ranges, you could test out damage profiles, you could test out different damage multipliers, whether you're shooting at the head or the chest or the legs or whatever. And that all sounded fantastic. We need something like that in the COD franchise as compared to, and I love these guys, but as compared to always relying on exclusive Ace and JGOD, we should be able to see our weapon stats and how our weapons perform in the game itself. We shouldn't have to bust out spreadsheets and stuff like that to really figure out what are the best attachments and what are the best guns in the game. The firing range that they gave us is pointless and terrible. There aren't even damage multipliers on these target dummies. Like if you shoot them in the head, it's the same amount of bullets if you shoot them in the toe. Like it's pointless what we have right here. I don't even know why they added it to the game. It is freaking horrible. Almost as horrible as the UI in this game. I'm not even joking. I am not memeing. You guys have to understand I am being 110% serious when I say this. This game's UI was designed by somebody who worked at Hulu, and that makes a lot of sense considering this looks like it was built for an iPad as compared to a gaming console or, God forbid, a gaming PC. The UI is so bad, it's so confusing. When I play with my friends to this day, they've been playing for like a week, and I still have to remind them how to get to certain parts of the UI to change things like your calling card or your clan tag. People don't know where these things are because it's so confusing and so convoluted. And the worst part is fans on Reddit with just a couple of hours in Photoshop were able to design a much more clean UI and a much more functional UI than what we have in Modern Warfare 2. And of course you could say, well, that's just the Modern Warfare 2019 UI. Yeah, that's the point. The new UI is horrible. Why are they fixing things that aren't broken? You know, you go back to the original Modern Warfare 2 in 2009, the UI was simple, it was clean, you could understand it, it just worked. But you know, what we have here in Modern Warfare 2 is confusing as all hell, and they're always catering to this idea of the newer player and trying to make the experience, the onboarding experience, I should say, better for these newer players. Well, then you give them like the worst, most convoluted UI, and I'm somebody who's been playing the franchise for over 15 years, and even I'm confused at times as to what I'm doing. That's not good. That person needs to either be fired or redesign the entire UI. There are some leaks and rumors going around saying that the UI and the UX are going to be completely redesigned, and I'm not holding my breath on that, but I truly do hope that it happens, because what we have right here and right now is objectively terrible. I don't even think it could be argued this is even remotely good, and hopefully it does get addressed in the relatively near future. Next up, we have footstep audio. Footsteps are pretty loud in this game. We knew this going from the beta. They did make them slightly quieter, and they tried to adjust the differences between enemy footsteps and teammate footsteps if you're playing a team-based game mode, but still, the footsteps themselves are pretty damn loud. And if you guys didn't know this, I saw a video from Exclusive Ace. You know, footsteps are so loud that you can still be heard if they're close enough to you while you're crouching. You may think, okay, well, crouching may not work. What about walking while aiming down sights? Aim walking is what people call it. Oh no, they can still hear you as well if they're close enough. Like, there's no way to actually make yourself silent in this game when it comes to running around, with the exception of the Dead Silence field upgrade. Not a perk, a field upgrade that has like a 12-second duration, and when you call it in, it lets off a microwave freaking smoke detector style beeping for like 3 or 4 seconds, effectively taking your field upgrade and making it useless for 25% of its initial use. You know what I mean? Like the very first like 1/4 of your use of Dead Silence, you're basically running around going beep, 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 and everybody can hear you. They know you're coming. It defeats the entire purpose of Dead Silence. It really just goes into that idea of what Infinity Ward wants for this game, which is basically people not to move and for people to feel really tactical when they crank up their headset and they kill somebody that they know is coming a mile away. I don't understand it. They really need to make Dead Silence a perk. We saw Sledgehammer Games release Call of Duty Vanguard without a Dead Silence or a Ninja style perk, and eventually they gave in to peer pressure and community feedback, and you know what? The game was made better as a result, and I hope the same thing is going to happen here with Modern Warfare 2, and from now on, like after Modern Warfare 2, we can stop doing this stupid ass song and dance where the developers pretend that Dead Silence or Ninja or whatever is not an essential perk in the Call of Duty franchise. It doesn't make any sense to me. Another thing doesn't make any sense, 10 base maps at launch. Now, I will say we have Spec Ops maps, I will say we have Ground War maps, but if you're somebody that likes to play traditional 6v6, you know, the original Modern Warfare 2 launched with 16 multiplayer maps, this game launched with 10. And this game came out 15 years later. How does that make any sense? It doesn't. I'll answer the question for you. It really doesn't make any sense whatsoever. There were supposed to be 11 maps at launch. One of them was going to be the museum map that we saw back during the beta, but just like in the beta where they had to remove the museum map because it kept having light flickering issues, apparently the museum map is broken yet again here for the full launch. Therefore, we only get 10 base maps, and one of those maps just so happens to be like one of, if not the worst map in Call of Duty history in the form of Border Crossing. Like, look at this clip right here. Who thought, and maybe I'm just crazy here, but who thought that a map full of explodable cars would have been a fun experience for anybody? Sure, it's unique, I'll give them that. But you know what other map would be unique? Going through a sewage treatment center as well, because that's basically the equivalent of what we're playing here on Border Crossing. This map is freaking horrible. I would say it's one of the worst maps of all time, right up there with the abomination that was Shipment back in Modern Warfare 2019. And if you like to play on that map, you only like to play on that map back then because you enjoyed leveling up your guns and doing challenges really quickly. You didn't like it for the gameplay, because the gameplay was stupid. You would literally spawn in front of or behind people. It was a terrible multiplayer map, and so is Border Crossing here within Modern Warfare 2. Stability so far has been a complete nightmare. I play on PC, I'm not even joking. I have maybe 75 crashes so far at this point. If I count everybody, like all my friends that we play in Discord together with, we're probably approaching like 400 total crashes between all of us. It was really bad when the game first came out. It was made a little bit better in the days that came after the initial launch, but in general, every single night, all of us crash a couple of times at the very least. It's frustrating, it's annoying as hell. Stability has been a massive problem, and apparently it's not even only just on PC, but it also happens if you play on console. It's mostly related to if you try playing with your friends. At first, you just weren't allowed to play with your friends in this game, despite the fact that the tagline for Modern Warfare 2 is all about team, yet you weren't allowed to play with a team in this game. It doesn't really make any sense, but then again, you guys are catching a theme here. A lot of stuff here in Modern Warfare 2 doesn't make any sense, such as the false bans that are going around. I did a video recently where I was saying that some people are reporting that they're being unbanned after being randomly banned for no reason within the game. Well, it turns out that's more of just an error on the website. These people are not being unbanned yet. They were banned for virtually no reason because maybe they had IQ installed on their PC, or maybe they had Razer Synapse or some shit on their PC. Like, they got banned for virtually no reason. You guys know my friend's system. Same thing happened to him on opening day. Like, if the game detects that you have some sort of a software in your PC, they think you maybe are trying to cheat, but that software is for nothing more than monitoring your fan speeds, like IQ and stuff like that. Like, it's ridiculous. It fucking, like, they're straight up stealing money from the player base. They're not acknowledging it really whatsoever, and I'm so fucking annoyed by this because they're actively just taking money from paying customers, and the reason why they're not acknowledging it, and you guys know I like to meme, but Team Ricochet, Ricochet, you know, that's the reason why they don't actually acknowledge any of this, because they talk about this anti-cheat anti-cheat so much. They're so proud of this anti-cheat. It's right there on the cover of the game. It's right there when you boot up the game. Like, they're so proud of this goddamn anti-cheat that doesn't even work. And so hopefully this does get fixed in the relatively near future. Hopefully some form of compensation is going to happen to the fans that this happened to. Although at this point, like, if you got banned on opening night like my friend's system did, and a week later you're still not unbanned, why would you even play the game? Like, people are asking for an update. He refunded the game on Steam. He's like, fuck them. Why would I ever try to play this game? Like, they literally tried to steal my money, and he spent over $100 in the Vault Edition. You know, there needs to be some form of compensation for the fans that do decide to come back, whether that's a shit ton of COD points or exclusive bundles or something. Like, but Activision won't do that. They're not going to acknowledge any of this. And honestly, it's getting to the point now that we're a week in where I'm questioning if people are even going to get unbanned, because I know for a fact that people were banned back during the beta as well for the exact same issues, even though they didn't do anything. And sure, some people get banned because they're shitheads and they were cheating, but so many people weren't cheating and they're not being unbanned. What a horrible situation, man. Like, I feel like I could go on forever on this, and I should, but what else could I say that hasn't already been said? This is like highway robbery. It's scummy as shit, and I don't know what else I can possibly say. I just hope that it works out in the long run and that these people actually get their accounts back. Now, speaking of things working in the long run, how about those missing features I mentioned towards the beginning of the video? We have no challenges in this game, despite the fact that Infinity Ward tried to say that they were going to be in the game. We're going to have like normal daily challenges, lifetime challenges, and then seasonal challenges. Well, those lifetime challenges simply aren't here. Neither are the barracks, neither is a combat record of any kind. We don't have leaderboards. We don't have prestige mode. There's nothing to go for in this game with the exception of camos and then unlocking those attachments like I mentioned earlier. But the problem with that is weapon leveling is so slow that this gets pretty tedious pretty quickly. You know, it doesn't take very long to get to level 55. There's no prestige mode, and once you're level 55, your daily challenges are completely pointless. There's no sense in like trying to level up anymore. All you have left to go for are weapon camos and weapon attachments, and those can take a very long time. So overall, I would say that Modern Warfare 2 feels very hollow with all the missing content. I think there's a good foundation here with issues that can be fixed easily, but those issues typically go against Infinity Ward's design philosophy, so I don't see them changing anytime soon. Basically, if you just want to buy this game for multiplayer, it's not worth it right now. Save your money. The idea is, well, right now the working theory is that when Season 1 comes out on November 16th, that is when the game is going to be like at its full launch, quote unquote. Like, maybe we'll actually have challenges then. Maybe we'll have combat records and barracks and prestige mode will be there and things like that. But right now, the game feels incredibly bare bones. It feels much more like a beta than the actual beta did. And if you're somebody that's thinking about buying the game and you haven't pulled the trigger already, just wait. It's not worth it right now. Like I said, there are a lot of good things about this game, but there's also a lot of bad things about the game as well. But overall, the game does feel hollow with all the missing content and all the missing features, only having 10 multiplayer maps. So yeah, save your money. But I will say the future does look bright for Modern Warfare 2, with of course it having a 2-year life cycle. And once we have more maps and once we have more features and content being added, then I think the game itself is actually going to be pretty good, assuming of course they can work on even half of the problems that I've laid out here in this video. Next up, we have the campaign. So I mentioned this is going to be a full review of Modern Warfare 2. I did beat the entirety of the campaign, and I will say going into it that this section of the video is going to have limited to no spoilers. I'm a big guy when it comes to like not wanting to spoil things for the player base. So I will say this about the campaign. The story was really good. It felt like I was playing through an action movie. It took me about 7 or 8 hours to get through. It was very slow paced for the first half of the game, however. Now, this is somewhat similar to Fallout 76, if you guys ever played that at launch. When you first start playing Fallout 76, you leave the vault, you go outside, and basically you're hunting down the Overseer, and you're like, all right, well, the Overseer's here. Then you get there, and there's nothing there. It's a barren wasteland. It's like, wait, what? There's no people here. There's no Overseer. There's nothing. So then you move on to the next town. There's nothing. Move on to the next town. There's nothing. The same is kind of true of the first half of the Modern Warfare 2 campaign. Again, without spoiling too much, you're chasing down certain people, and you never really seem to find them. And it kind of just feels like, what are we even doing here? I'm just like killing endless waves of bad guys. The variety was pretty good, especially once again in the second half. map. There was a bunch of different things that I personally have not seen in a very long time or at all within the COD series when it comes to campaign. There were some very unique levels. I think you guys know what I'm talking about when it comes to the mission alone. That was incredibly unique and also incredibly frustrating at times. I will say that the cutscenes are immaculate. The voice acting is great. And if you guys haven't heard this, it was already rumored, and I believe even to an extent confirmed, that campaign add-ons would be coming to Modern Warfare 2 within year 2. So while yes, the ending of the game, in my opinion, is interesting, I'm not going to say it's good or bad, it's interesting, we're going to get more on top of that with these campaign DLC add-ons, which I believe are going to cost money come year 2, but if it's going to be completely voice acted and choreographed and scripted and everything like that, like then sure, I can see people wanting to pay for another, essentially another campaign more than 1 year into the game's life cycle. So we'll have to wait and see how that is going to actually play out. And it's also worth mentioning that you do get rewards in this game for completing every single mission. Every mission does give you something, whether it's an emblem you can use, a calling card, an operator, a weapon variant for beating the game. It's all there. So I do think it's also another incentive. It takes about 7 to 8 hours. It really does set the playing field, so to speak. It sets the stage for Modern Warfare 2. So when you're playing in the multiplayer, you kind of have an idea of why we're on these maps and why we're doing what we're doing within the game's multiplayer. And overall, I would say it is worth your time if you're at all interested. And also, again, you get those rewards that you can use in multiplayer as well as Warzone, so you might as well. Moving along here to the final bit of the video, we have Spec Ops. I will say this is the game mode I have played the least so far, and it's because Spec Ops is a buggy mess. There are 3 total missions in the game. If you play on PC, every time you boot up Spec Ops, your keybinds will reset. So that's pretty fun. And me, who plays on PC but with a controller, I wasn't able to move. As you guys can see, I'm trying to, but I'm not able to move left or right. This was literally my very first experience with Spec Ops. So once I actually got Spec Ops working, I will say it's a nice change of pace to play the game with a friend. You level up your weapons ever so slightly. I mean, there are a bunch of these different weapon XP glitches that are popping up every single day about things you can do in Spec Ops to level your guns quickly. You know, if you want to go for that, sure, but with them already banning so many people that didn't actually do anything, I'm not going to risk doing a weapon XP glitch or anything like that. Personally, I'm just not going to bother with it. But you do get a little bit of weapon XP for killing AI, and you get to play the game with a friend or with a random person online who may become a friend later. Who knows? We're actually encouraging people to play together this year. I know it's crazy. And overall, you essentially get a Call of Duty experience that sort of blurs the line between campaign and multiplayer. It's a co-op campaign essentially, but it's nothing like anything you did in the campaign. And the Spec Ops missions themselves are once again set on that Warzone 2 map. So if you're interested in seeing what that's going to be like, feel free to jump on in. But ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That is my full review of the launch of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I truly hope that 1 year into this game's life cycle, it's going to be much different than what I was talking about here today, because the game itself overall is, in my opinion, not worth purchasing just based on the sheer amount of bugs and problems and false bans and missing content. You know, to answer the question in the title and in the thumbnail, does Modern Warfare 2 suck? Yeah, it does, actually, in a lot of respects. There's a good foundation here. Don't get me wrong. There really is a good foundation, and there's a lot of fun aspects to the game that keep me coming back and playing every day. But at the same time, if I were to look at this game objectively as somebody whose livelihood doesn't depend on making YouTube videos and being a Call of Duty pundit, like if I were to recommend this to just like my cousin or a friend or something like that, I'd say no. Like, no, stay away from the game right now. There's no reason for you to spend your money. You're not going to enjoy the core experience, and first impressions are a lasting one. That's the thing. Like, if you buy the game now and you start to play it and you realize how barren it is and you get burnt out on the barren version of the game, then by the time the game actually gets updated and actually has content and actually works and doesn't ban its own paying customers, you're already going to be burnt out and you're not going to be having as much fun as you otherwise could. Look, I'm a COD YouTuber. Of course I play the game every day. Some people come out and they say like, oh, of course you talk bad about COD all the time, yet you play it all the time, and yet you make videos all the time. No shit. That's my job. Fucking idiots, dude. I do it so you don't have to. I'm just here to give you my honest impressions of the game so far, and those were what I gave you here throughout the entirety of this video. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I hope you enjoyed the video. It took a lot of editing, a lot of effort. Hopefully you guys can hook me up with a like if you enjoyed. Leave your thoughts and feedback down there in the comments. Be sure to subscribe if you're new around here, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.